The Baltimore police officers who were exonerated in the death of Freddie Gray in 2015 are moving forward with their lawsuit against State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby. A federal judge ruled that depositions and discovery can continue over the next 90 days in the police officer's case against Mosby while she awaits a ruling of an appeal she filed to try and halt the case. And we all recall the national outrage over the death of Freddie Gray, a 25-year-old man who died of neck and spinal injuries while in police custody in April 2015. Mosby charged 6 officers with crimes including manslaughter and murder. One trial ended with a hung jury and 3 bench trials returned not guilty verdicts. Charges were dropped for the 3 remaining officers. Mosby is now facing a lawsuit by 5 of those 6 officers alleging she acted out of malicious intent by charging them for the death of Gray. All right, folks, let's break it down again with our panel, Shannon Wright, Davon Lowe, Jameer Burley. Davon, I want to start with you. This is clearly an attempt by Baltimore police officers to muzzle Marilyn Mosby, to send a signal to her, don't you ever dare question Baltimore police officers. Don't you ever dare try to hold them accountable for their actions.
I mean, this really speaks to the way in which the fraternal order of the police has been an institution that has undermined our ability to have accountability. Because in many ways, if you think about what State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby did, what she did was what is supposed to be the last resort, right? It's having to prosecute police officers for wrongdoing. But if the system operated in a just manner, then there would be mechanisms within the police department that will allow for civilians to be able to levy discipline against officers that engage in misconduct. What we see here is a potential for there to be a chilling effect, right? Not just in Baltimore, but around the country, where you have, I mean, it's infinitesimal, the amount of state's attorneys that actually prosecute police officers. And so given that this proceeding is moving forward, this presents a chilling effect to other prosecutors that are going to attempt to hold law enforcement accountable.
Pastor Shannon Wright, there's also another gentleman who, I think a college professor, who is even trying to go after Marilyn Mosby's law license as a result of this prosecution. I mean, what are we saying here? That somehow cops can't be held accountable? That cops somehow, if they are involved in wrongdoing, that they can't be tried? Is it the point of a legal system that is you're innocent until proven guilty? 3 of them were found not guilty, 1 a hung trial, and they're saying, how dare you, Marilyn Mosby, even attempt to prosecute us?
I think what they're actually trying to say is that from the beginning they've said it was an overreach. It was a matter of not that something happened. I mean, clearly something happened. There is a young man that is no longer here. But the question was, and it seemed like that was the question from the beginning, was what should these officers be tried with? The fact that none of them were convicted leads them to say, this is what we were talking about. This was an overreach. So I think somewhere.
But here's the piece, though. But I don't understand, though. Isn't that the whole point of going through a trial? But to file a lawsuit against her saying malicious intent, it is her job as the district attorney, if she looks at the evidence, to file charges. So are they saying that if I get charged for something and I go, well, I'm found not guilty, I still disagree with you, I'm going to sue you for doing your job? Is that what they're saying?
No, that's not what they're saying. As I was trying to say, the question was the charges that should have been levied in the first place. And the thought was, the feeling was that it was an overreach from the beginning. So when you have an overreach that a lot of folks will say was proven by the fact that there was not 1 conviction, it leads folks to say, okay, now we are displeased with you. Now we are going to file charges to say, you cannot just do this based on emotion, based on whatever it is you want to do. When you decide the law is specific, it's not emotional. So if you decide that you want to go for certain things, you can't do it.
As an individual who's worked in police accountability for the last 6 years, I can tell you that the fact that these officers were not convicted is not a representation of their innocence. It's actually a representation of the fact that our justice system is unequal. And we know police officers are, rarely ever brought to court, and even more rarely ever convicted for their crimes, because we have a justice system that allows police officers to do whatever they want and are rarely held accountable. And I think the fact that they're now going to try to sue Marilyn Mosby, I think, is a clear indication that The fraternal order doesn't want police officers held accountable in any form or fashion, and they don't want prosecutors actually holding them to the letter of the law in which they actually swore to. And so I think this sets a really bad precedent, and it's going to, as the gentleman mentioned, going to send a shockwave across the country saying don't prosecute police officers even when they commit murder while they're on a job.
Davon, look, we have a DA, Marilyn Mosby, who was elected concerned about social justice. We had a DA in Cook County in Chicago, a DA in Houston. You saw Tim McGinty thrown out in Cuyahoga County in Cleveland. You've seen other DAs elected where folks are concerned about social justice and fairness. This is all intended to create a chilling effect, to send a signal to any DA, especially any black DA. Don't you dare oppose the police, or we're going to go after you and go after your law license. If you want to beat her at the ballot box, not this way.
Right, and I think, so in terms of what we do about it, and I know I sound like a broken record in talking about the Fraternal Order of Police, as a person who's done advocacy around police accountability here in Maryland, you know, one of the things that I've observed is that, you know, the FOP is essentially is a special interest group funded by public dollars, and they're allowed to engage in the kinds of behavior we see in terms of levying these kinds of lawsuits. If we don't start to target the Fraternal Order of Police as an entity that is obstructing the ability for folks to be held accountable for the violence that happens against black people and people of color around this country, then we're going to continue to be here talking about whether or not prosecutors should prosecute individual cases of brutality as opposed to addressing the larger systemic issue, which is that we have to undermine the Fraternal Order of Police ability to have a stranglehold on accountability, whether it's how insular the procedures for investigation are in terms of issues of misconduct. We have to get to the systemic pieces that'll help people like Marilyn Mosby to be able to effectively prosecute officers, but also provide civilians, people in community, with the mechanisms to have deterrent effects in terms of challenging officers, firing them, and disciplining them for the actions that they engage in against our people.
And that's why I think it's even more important why we had clear representation in the Department of Justice, and why the confirmation of Jeff Sessions is actually going to be counterproductive to the progress that's been made over the last few years.
But now, if we take this back to Baltimore, there are some other issues, and perhaps my mind is just not clear here. But if the issue is that folks were now persecuting and prosecuting or attempting to Marilyn Mosby because she was a black woman that dared to prosecute police, well, forgive me, but maybe my memory is unclear. What color was the judge that didn't convict them?
The judge.
Wait, hold on a second.
Wait a minute. Let me be real clear. Okay? No, it's not. My point is this here. These are police officers who are saying, don't you dare, black woman, don't you dare charge us. That's what they're saying. But so that's what they're doing. Because here's the piece. She beat the previous DA at the ballot box who would never charge police officers. The fact of the matter is, in Baltimore, you have had years and years and years of police wrongdoing proven by the DOJ's report in that city. And that's why they want a consent decree. But the Fraternal Order of Police and the cops in Baltimore, they're saying, Marilyn Mosby, turn your head, turn a blind eye. We're going to do what we want to do, and don't you dare charge us. That's why they were angry, Shannon. They were angry when they got charged. They stopped doing their job when they got charged. There was a slowdown because they said, how dare you? They don't want any level of accountability. None whatsoever. None.
I hear you. There needs to be a balance.
Well,
there needs to be
No. There needs to be. The balance very simply is you were simply, you went through the process. You were charged. You were found not guilty. You got back pay. You're back on the job. That's your balance.
And I think a part of the way that law enforcement has been structured, it puts DAs at an inherent disadvantage because there's information that the DAs don't have access to, that the police have access to as a result of the laws that are put in place. We have the Law Enforcement Officer Bill of Rights in Maryland, which undermines the ability for DA to get certain information.
Absolutely.
And so I think it's important for us to see that as a part of the systemic change that needs to happen to help states' attorneys be able to effectively prosecute police officers.
Kickstart your day at 7 and get the news you need from the perspective you want. NewsOne Now with Roland Martin, every weekday morning at 7 on TV1.